Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today let's analyze John Milton's Paradise Lost Book 3. Paradise Lost Book 3, published in 1667. John Milton, 1608-1674. Book 3 of Paradise Lost marks a dramatic shift in tone and setting from the previous two books. After the fiery landscape and political maneuvering of hell, Milton now transports the reader to heaven, offering a divine perspective on Satan's rebellion and his journey towards the newly created earth. This book acts as a cosmic interlude, introducing the celestial dialogue between God and Father and a God and Son, and laying the theological foundation for the forthcoming fall of man. The opening invocation. Milton begins Book 3 with a personal invocation to holy light, signaling a departure from hell's darkness. He refers to his own blindness, both literal and metaphorical, and requests divine inspiration to describe events in heaven. He says, "Hail, holy light, offspring of heaven, firstborn." This invocation is poignant as Milton equates his loss of physical sight with a gain in spiritual insight. The poet identifies with prophets like Moses, who were inwardly illuminated by divine wisdom. By addressing the holy light, Milton also thematically contrasts the spiritual clarity of heaven with the ignorance and illusion that pervades Satan's world. God foresees Satan's journey and humanity's fall. In the first major scene, God the Father surveys the cosmos and foresees Satan's ascent toward earth and his scheme to tempt Adam and Eve. While acknowledging Satan's free will, God emphasizes that he had already foreseen this rebellion. "Whom I created free and free I leave him." Here Milton explores one of the central theological tensions of the epic. That is, the reconciliation of divine foreknowledge with a human free will. God explains that he is not the author of evil, for although he foreknows it, he does not cause it. The gift of free will gives moral dignity to humanity, but also the potential for sin. This reflects Milton's own Protestant theology, heavily influenced by Arminianism, which holds that God's grace does not override human freedom. God's justice and mercy, the dilemma. God further explains that if humanity falls, justice requires punishment, death, because disobedience cannot go unpunished. Yet he also desires mercy. This sets up a divine paradox. That is, how can a just God also be merciful? This is the core dilemma that triggers one of the most powerful moments in Christian epic poetry. That is, the voluntary self-sacrifice of the Son. The Son offers himself as a sacrifice. Moved by divine compassion and love, God the Son steps forward and offers himself as a substitute to take on the punishment for humanity's sin. "Behold me then, me for him, life for life, I offer." This is the theological climax of Book 3. It prefigures Christ's incarnation and crucifixion, events that are historically yet to happen within the poem's timeline, but are eternally foreseen in God's mind. The Son's speech is humble, obedient, and full of love. In contrast to Satan's earlier rebellion, the Son displays perfect submission and alignment with the Father's will. This moment serves not only as a Christian doctrinal statement on atonement and redemption, but also as a literary foil to Satan's declaration in hell, where Satan seeks selfish glory, the Son embraces sacrificial love. The angels sing in praise. After the Son offers himself, heaven erupts in celestial celebration. Angels sing hymns of joy, praising the Son's love and obedience. This chronic moment, reminiscent of Greek tragedy, emphasizes the cosmic harmony restored by the Son's willing sacrifice. Satan's journey through chaos. Meanwhile, Milton shifts the narrative focus back to Satan, who is now navigating the chaotic space between hell and earth. This interstellar realm, called chaos, is depicted as disordered void full of shifting elements and blind confusion. Satan deceives the beings who guard the realm of chaos and persuades them to let him pass. Satan's journey through chaos is symbolic. It mirrors his descent into further moral darkness, even as he ascends towards earth. He is portrayed both heroically and ironically as a figure who dares to venture into the unknown, yet for an evil purpose. Satan reaches the world and contemplates earth. As Satan nears the created universe, he is momentarily stunned by the beauty and order of God's creation. He approaches the gates of God's creation, that is heaven and earth, which are described as a golden stairway built for angelic traffic. From afar, he spies Uriel, the angel guarding the sun. Using flattery and deceit, Satan disguises himself as a good angel and tricks Uriel into telling him the location of paradise, the Garden of Eden. Uriel, deceived by Satan's appearance, points the way. This moment sets the stage for next part of the story, that is Satan's entry into paradise and the temptation of Adam and Eve. Book 3 is a cornerstone of Paradise Lost because it reconciles the cosmic narrative with the Christian doctrine. It explains why God permits the fall, clarifies his justice and mercy, and prepares the way for redemption through Christ. Milton uses this book to justify the ways of God to men, his stated purpose in the epic. The juxtaposition of Satan's ambition and the Son's humility also illustrates Milton's deep concern with obedience, liberty, and moral choice. A grand architecture of heaven, the solemnity of God's pronouncements, and the heroism of Son contrast starkly with the chaos, ambition, and deceit of hell. Now let's have a look at the critical analysis of Book 3. Shift in setting and tone. Book 3 moves the epic from the darkness of hell to the radiant serenity of heaven. This spatial and tonal contrast symbolizes the conflict between divine order and a chaotic rebellion. Invocation to light. Milton opens with an invocation to holy light, referencing his own blindness. This personal appeal reflects his belief in inner spiritual illumination and links his poetic purpose with a prophetic insight. Theological core. For knowledge and a free will. God the Father observes Satan's movement toward earth and explains the forthcoming fall of man. He asserts that although he foreknows the fall, it arises from human free will, not divine compulsion, preserving moral accountability. The Son's voluntary sacrifice. And in response to the need for justice and mercy, the Son offers himself to die for humanity. His act of self-sacrifice stands in moral contrast to Satan's selfish ambition, establishing the foundation for redemption. Satan's deceit and irony. As Satan journeys through chaos and enters the new universe, he disguises himself and deceives Uriel. His false piety starkly contrasts with the Son's true humility. Milton's purpose. Book 3 affirms Milton's aim to justify the ways of God to men, balancing divine justice, mercy, and human freedom. Now let's analyze the main quotes from Book 3. Verse 1. Hail, holy light, offspring of heaven, firstborn. Milton begins Book 3 with an invocation to light, addressing it as divine and eternal, even before material creation. This holy light symbolizes truth, reason, and divine wisdom, in contrast to the darkness of hell. It also reflects Milton's personal longing for inner vision, especially after losing his physical sight. The next quote. So much the rather thou celestial light shine inward, and the mind through all her powers irradiate. Here Milton asks for divine inspiration to shine inward, illuminating his intellect. He emphasizes spiritual perception over physical sight, asking God to guide him in narrating heavenly truth. This is a deeply personal and theological appeal, revealing the poet's identification with a prophetic tradition. Now the next quote. The mind is its own place, and in itself can make a heaven of hell a hell of heaven. Referenced again in turn in Book 3. Though said by Satan in Book 1, the influence lingers in Book 3 as God anticipates Satan's inverted distortions. This underscores moral responsibility. That is, even in darkness, the mind can choose virtue or vice. Milton is revisiting the idea that perception is morally charged. The next quote. Freely they stood who stood, and fell who fell. God declares that angels and humans were created with a free will and must be judged by their choices. This quote encapsulates Milton's Armenian theology, where salvation and damnation are contingent on free choice, not a predestination. It supports the poem's effort to justify divine justice. Now the next quote. I made him just and right, sufficient to have stood, though free to fall. God explains that Adam was created righteous and capable of resisting temptation. The phrase free to fall defines Milton's understanding of moral freedom. That is, the liberty to choose wrongly is essential for virtue. This becomes central to the drama of the fall. The next quote. I foreknew, foreknowledge had no influence on their fault. Here God distinguishes between foreknowledge and causation, asserting that his knowledge of the future does not determine human actions. This addresses the age-old theological paradox, that is, how can humans be free if God knows all? Milton resolves it by emphasizing divine omniscience without a coercion. Now the next quote. Die he or justice must, unless from him some other able and as willing pay the rigid satisfaction death for death. God states that justice demands death for sin unless a substitute offers satisfaction. This frames the necessity of atonement, establishing the logic of Christ's sacrifice. It draws upon legal, moral, and sacrificial imagery rooted in both scripture and classical ethics. Now the next quote, "Behold me then, me for him, life for life, I offer," spoken by the Son. The Son willingly steps forward, offering himself in humanity's place. His voluntary sacrifice contrasts with Satan's pride and rebellion, highlighting the love, humility, and obedience. This moment anticipates the Christian redemption narrative and becomes a cornerstone of Milton's theology. The next quote, "Father, thy word is past, man shall find a grace," spoken by Son. The Son confirms that through his sacrifice, grace will be extended to humanity. This expresses the Christian principle of salvation by grace, not merit. It reinforces the central redemptive message of Paradise Lost. Now the next quote, "With thee I leave my glory and expect no other plea than this. Thy will be done," spoken by the Son. The Son places a complete trust in God's justice and will without seeking personal glory. His words echo Christ's prayer in Gethsemane, affirming full submission. Milton sets him up as a perfect moral opposite of Satan. The next quote, "His words here ended, were his meek aspect, silent yet spake." The narrator observes that the Son's humility and love are visible even in silence. Milton elevates a non-verbal righteousness, presenting a powerful contrast to Satan's manipulative eloquence. It underscores the value of inner virtue over outward speech. The next quote, "Thou hast at large received atonement for thy sins, and thus relief from death," God the Father says. God responds by affirming that the Son's offer will fulfill the demands of justice and open the path to salvation. This signifies the completion of divine justice through mercy, bridging judgment and love. It reflects the Christian synthesis of law and grace. The next quote, "Into this wild abyss, the womb of nature and perhaps her grave." The narrator describes chaos as a dark, formless void, simultaneously generative and destructive. This highlights the cosmic scale of Satan's journey as he moves through disorder to reach Earth. Milton uses vivid metaphorical imagery to underscore the consequences of rebellion and the risks of divine disruption. Now the next quote, "The secrets of the hoary deep, a dark, illimitable ocean without bound." Satan's passage through chaos emphasizes its vast, unknowable, and infinite nature. It represents not just a physical distance, but a spiritual and philosophical chasm. Milton uses this imagery to stress the gravity of Satan's mission and the distance from divine light. The next quote, "His form had not yet lost, all her original brightness not appeared, less than archangel ruined." Satan, despite his fall, still retains traces of his former celestial beauty. This ambiguous image reflects moral complexity. He is both a magnificent and a corrupted. Milton leaves readers torn between awe and repulsion, reinforcing Satan's tragedy and moral decay.